Dear subscribers, students and the viewers, welcome to the IAS Mentor. This will be our lecture number 11 in the series Indian Polity. As it has been already stated, the objective of this series is to provide a comprehensive idea on the subject Indian Polity, and this series will not only be useful to the students preparing for the UPSC IAS examination, but also the program is designed in such a way that it will also be useful to all the students who are also preparing for various other competitive examinations, including the public service commissions at the state level. So with that, we'll move to the next topic that we are going to discuss as a part of our discussion. Today we are going to discuss a very basic but again a very important topic, is what is called as majorities. You might wonder as to why this topic majority is very important. In the previous lecture, if you see, which is related to the key terms in polity and also the features in the Indian Constitution, I spoke of a number of things. And in fact, one of the feature of the Indian Constitution is what is called as a parliamentary democracy. And what did we understand as to what is a parliamentary democracy? Parliamentary democracy is a system where people elect their representatives to the parliament and from where the government is formed. And to be very specific, in case of India, people elect their representatives and send them to the Lok Sabha, and from the Lok Sabha, any party which is having the majority, they form the government. And not only that they form the government, it may be a single party or it may be a coalition of party. So they form the government. Not only they form the government, but the very essence of parliamentary democracy is that once a government is formed, that government is always accountable to the legislature, or that government is accountable to what is called as parliament. So in the parliament, they also need to have a majority always. So that's the significance of what is called as a parliamentary democracy, which always makes the government accountable to the parliament, which always makes the government accountable to the legislature. The same is true at the state level as well. In every state, the government is elected. People elect their representatives, send them to the state legislature, to be very specific, legislative assembly. And from where a particular party or a coalition of party which has got the majority, they elect their they form the government, and the government is formed. And that government should always have a majority in the state legislature, to be very specific, the legislative assembly. And this is the very essence of what is called as a parliamentary democracy. So if you ask me, one single word which defines as to what is a parliamentary democracy is the accountability of the executive to the legislature. So thereby you can understand how important is the legislative body in a parliamentary democracy. The parliament is so important at the union level. Similarly, the state legislature is so important at the state level. Now in this context, if you have to understand the term majority, that means in a parliamentary democracy, most of the decisions are taken in the parliament. And in fact, the decisions are taken on the basis of what is called as a majority. Only if it is approved by certain majority in the house, then only that proposal is accepted and then it can be implemented probably. For example, we know that under our constitutional system, that is under the Constitution of India, the law making body is the parliament at the union level. The law making body is the state legislature at the state level. And to make this particular law, this proposal has to be first introduced in the legislative body, that is, say for example in the parliament, and then it has to be approved by certain number of members in the parliament. That means it has to be approved with certain majority in the parliament. Unless and until it is approved with certain majority in the parliament, then it cannot go to the president for his assent. Anyways, there is a process as to how a law is to be made. So our idea in this particular class is not to study the process of doing various things, but our idea in this particular lecture is only to understand the majority that is required for different purpose. And not just the majority required for different purpose, what these majority means. Under what circumstances we can say that this majority is fulfilled. For that purpose, if you look into the Constitution of India, the Constitution of India provides for 4 different types of majorities. And that is what we are going to understand one by one. So what are the majorities that is used as per our constitutional system? 4 types of majority is used. One is simple majority, and then we have got what is called as absolute majority, then we have what is called as effective majority, and then we have got what is called as special majority. So overall, whatever is to be done by the parliament, whatever is approval which is given by the parliament or by the state legislature, it has to fall under either of these majorities. It should be either simple, or it should be absolute, or it should be effective, or it should be special majority. But however, for what purpose, which majority is to be used in the parliament or in any of the other legislative body is prescribed in the constitution itself. So it is not that as per their own whims and fancies they can use any majority that they want. For any specific purpose, the majority is specified. Say for example, to pass an ordinary bill, the majority is specified. To pass a constitutional amendment bill, the majority is specified. To pass a no confidence motion, there is a majority that you have to follow. So, but however, of all the majority that is mentioned in the constitution, they can be clubbed only in these four categories, that is simple majority, absolute majority, effective majority, and special majority. And that's exactly what we are going to understand in this particular lecture. In fact, if you understand this particular lecture, it will be very clear to you, crystal clear as to how these majorities are to be calculated, which is very, very important for us to before proceed to the next lectures. Because in the coming lectures, many times I'll use the word majority. So the moment I say a specific majority, say for example, when I use the word absolute majority, you should be in a position to understand how to calculate this absolute majority, and that is exactly what we're going to see in today's lecture. So the first type of majority that I want to discuss today is what is called as a simple majority. In fact, as the name suggests, this is the simplest majority that can be achieved in the parliament or in the state legislature, and that is why it is called a simple majority. Now what is a simple majority? To put it in a very simple way, a simple majority is something, it is the majority of the members present as well as voting. So that is basically what is called as majority. When I use the word majority, it is always more than certain numbers. So here when you talk of simple majority, what do you understand by simple majority? It is a majority of the members present as well as voting. So the key word that you have to take into consideration is present as well as voting. Say for example, let us assume that if there are 50 members, or say, let us assume that if there are 100 members in a particular, let us assume in an assembly, or say let us assume in a classroom, there are 100 members, and that is a total strength of that particular classroom, let us assume. And how do you calculate the simple majority? So the moment I ask you what is a majority, so most of you might think that it is 51, that is more than 50%. But more than 50% out of a strength of, say let us assume 100, which is the total strength of that particular class, will not amount to what is called a simple majority. To calculate simple majority, there are a lot of other factors that you have to take into consideration, so try to pay keen attention. So what are the other factors we'll have to take into consideration to calculate the simple majority is that we are not just concerned about the total strength of the class or the total strength of the house, be it Lok Sabha or be it Rajya Sabha or the state legislature. What we are concerned is more than that. What we are concerned is out of the total members, how many are present in a given day. So although the total strength, say let us assume the total strength of a particular class, just for an example, it's not a class, you can apply this majority anywhere. Suppose let us assume a total strength of a particular class is 100, but on a given day it might be possible there are few members who are absent. Suppose let us assume that on a given day there are 10 members who are absent in that particular class. So out of 100 you will have to minus this 10, and then there would be only effectively 90 members in that particular class on a given day because 10 people are absent. Okay, out of 90, if you calculate the majority, you will get what is called as 46, which is more than 50%. Is that the simple majority? So first we have seen the total strength is 100. So if you calculate the majority, it is 51. Is that the simple majority? No, because it might be possible some of the members might be absent. So let us assume then we will reduce 10 out of that because there are 10 absence, so 90. So if you see the majority of 90, it is 46. Is that the simple majority? No, that is also not the simple majority. So then how to calculate the simple majority? As I already said, the key word to calculate simple majority is the majority of the members present as well as voting. That means, say let us assume 90 members are present, but not necessarily all those 90 members might vote. Suppose let us assume out of those 90 members, 10 people did not opt to vote. They abstained from voting. In fact, nobody can force them to vote, so they abstain from voting. Abstain means they are not interested in voting. So actually, how many people are participating in the voting on a given day is, although the total strength of the classroom is 100, 10 people are absent, 90 people are present, but among the 90 present, only 80 people are actually taking part in the voting process. So out of that present and voting, so if you see the present and voting out of 100, the present and voting is only 80 because 10 are absent, only 90 are present, but in that 90 only 80 are voting. So present and voting is nothing but only 80 members here. So then you will have to calculate the majority of that. So that would be what is called a simple majority. So in this example, what would be the simple majority? So if there are 80 members present and voting, out of which 41 members support any proposal, then that proposal is deemed to be passed with what is called as a simple majority. So this is the first understanding you should have. So what is the basic parameter that you have to take into account to calculate a simple majority? So to calculate simple majority, you should always see how many members are present as well as voting. And those people who are present as well as voting, and among them who present as well as voting, is it crossing more than 50%? Then it is passed with what is called a simple majority, and in fact this is the easiest majority to achieve. Now say for example in a house, let us assume, take the example of Lok Sabha. In Lok Sabha presently the total authorized strength is 543. And if you see 543, if you calculate the majority of 543, it would be 272. But that is not what is called a simple majority, because for simple majority we are not taking into consideration the total membership of the house. We are only interested in how many are present as well as voting on a given day, and in that is there a majority, and that's basically what is called a simple majority. For example, out of the 543 total membership, let us assume on a given day only 500 members are present for easy calculation. So only 500 members are present, but not all 500 members are participating in the voting. Let us assume only 400 members are participating in the voting. Although 500 members are present, how many are taking part in the voting? Only 400. So that means out of that 400, which means 400 would be present as well as voting. So to calculate the simple majority of the present as well as voting in this case, which is 400, the majority would be what is called as 201. That is 201 would be what is called a simple majority. That means in this case, if 201 members support a particular proposal which is introduced in the house, then it is deemed to be passed with what is called a simple majority. So the basic thing that you have to take into consideration to calculate the simple majority is how many members are present as well as voting. That is the key thing that you have to remember. Simple majority means majority of the members present as well as voting. Alright. So where this majority is used? The simple majority is one which is widely used in our constitutional system. So most of the places what type of majority is required in the parliament or in the state legislature, it is only the simple majority. But this is not the only majority that is used. Of course, there are other types of majorities which is also used under our constitutional system. But majorly which is used is the simple majority. For example, where this is used? To pass an ordinary bills in the houses of the parliament, what type of majority is used? It is a simple majority. Anyways, what is an ordinary bill? How it is getting passed? What is the process? Don't worry about it. That is, we are in still a long way to go and understand all those things, which I'll discuss when I take up the parliament chapter. But right now, to pass an ordinary bill in the parliament, which majority is required? It requires a simple majority, both in the Lok Sabha as well as in the Rajya Sabha. To pass a money bill, which majority is required? It requires what is called as a simple majority. To pass a financial bill, what majority is required? It requires a simple majority. Most of the motions which is introduced in the parliament, what type of majority is required? It requires a simple majority. So for example, if a no confidence motion is introduced against the government, which majority is required? It requires what is called as a simple majority. If anyone knows as to what is a no confidence motion, you can put that in the comment box. For those students who are not aware of this, I'll explain that at the later stages because we are still a way to go about it. But those who know, if you are interested, you can put that in the comment box. And for the election of the speaker, say for example, in the Lok Sabha, there is someone who is elected as a speaker, who is a presiding officer. And to elect him, what majority is required? We require simple majority. To elect the deputy speaker, what majority we require? We require what is called a simple majority in the house. To elect the deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha, which majority is required? We required simple majority in the Rajya Sabha. So in this way, for most of the things that has to happen in the parliament, and if the parliament is to give the approval, what is the majority that is required? It requires only what is called as simple majority. And to calculate the simple majority, what is to be taken into account is the number of members present as well as voting. That's the only thing that they have to take into account. And the majority of that would be what is called as simple majority. So how all these things happens, we'll discuss that at a later stage. So right now, the idea is that you should understand as to what is a simple majority. All right. So apart from the simple majority, there are also other types of majority, because overall I said in the entire constitution, there are 4 types of majority. One is simple majority, and then you have got what is called as absolute majority, and then you have got what is called as effective majority, and then you have got what is called as special majority. So all the actions that is to be done by either the parliament or by the state legislature, they have to fall under any of these types of majorities. But majorly which majority is used for most of the purpose? It is what is called as simple majority. The second type of majority that you are going to discuss is what is called as absolute majority. And what is absolute majority? As the name suggests, absolute majority is nothing but this is the majority of the total membership of the house. So to calculate the absolute majority, you don't have to worry about anything. All that you need to know is what is the total membership of the house. And only if you have this particular data is more than sufficient. But whereas on the other hand, to calculate the simple majority, the total membership of the house, and if you have that information, that is not sufficient to calculate simple majority. But rather what you need to have? You need to have how many members are present as well as how many members are taking part in the voting. But whereas on the contrary, to calculate the absolute majority, you don't have to have any of the other information. The only information that you need to have is what is the total membership of that house. Say for example, let us assume a house is having 100 members, and if the constitution says certain proposal is to be passed by an absolute majority, then the only information that we need to have is what is the total strength of the house. And suppose if it is 100, it doesn't matter how many members are present in a given day, it doesn't matter how many are participating in a given day, irrespective of how many members are present or how many are voting, it has to be approved by 51 members. That is basically what is called as absolute majority. That is the majority of the total membership of the house. Even if there are only, let us assume 60 members present, still it needs to be approved by 51 members. Unless and until the proposal is approved by 51 members in the example that you have taken, then it is not deemed to be passed with what is called as absolute majority. Absolute means you will always take into consideration the total membership of the house. You are not concerned about how many are present or voting. So that is not the concern when you calculate what is called as absolute majority. Is that clear to you? Whereas in simple majority, we are not concerned about the total membership, but we are concerned about how many are present and voting on a given day. And in that we need to have a majority. In absolute majority, we are only concerned about the total membership of the house, and in that we need to have what is called as a majority. For example, suppose let us assume we know that the size of the Lok Sabha is 543 today, the total membership is 543 today, and the total membership of Rajya Sabha is 245 today. And suppose if anything requires absolute majority, it does not matter how many are present on a given day. The absolute majority or present or voting on a given day. The absolute majority in case of Lok Sabha is 272, and the absolute majority in case of Rajya Sabha is 123. So that is more than 50%. So that is how you'll have to understand. Okay. And where this absolute majority is used in the constitution, this is very, very important. In fact, the absolute majority is not separately used anywhere in the constitution. Does it mean that it does not find mention anywhere, or it does not have any use as per the Constitution of India, this type of majority? That is also not the case. It is not separately used for any of the purpose, but it is used in connection with certain other majority, which we will subsequently discuss. Okay. So for time being, you try to understand as to what is this absolute majority or how to calculate the absolute majority. Where it is used, I will discuss that as we will proceed to the next type of majority. So come to the third type of majority in the constitution is what is called as effective majority. So before I go to the effective majority, let me just repeat it once again. What is simple majority? It is a majority of the members present as well as voting. Unless and until you have this information of how many are present as well as taking part in the voting, you will not be able to calculate the simple majority. And to calculate the absolute majority, the only information that you need to have is what is the total strength of the house or the total membership of the house. And you have that information, you will be able to calculate what is called as the absolute majority. Now, the third type of majority is what is called as effective majority. Now, what do you understand by effective majority? Effective majority means it is nothing but the majority of the effective membership of the house. To put it in a very simple way, what is effective majority? It is a majority of the effective membership of the house. So, we are saying it is the majority of the effective membership of the house. And to calculate the effective majority, first we will have to identify what is the effective membership. And once we know what is an effective membership of a house, then we can calculate what is called as the effective majority. So, how do you calculate the effective membership of a house? The effective membership of the house is calculated by total membership minus vacancies presently in that particular house. Then it gives us what is called as the effective membership. So, this is basically what you will have to understand. So, say let us assume the total membership of Lok Sabha is 543. Assume that it is 543. And out of that 543 members, let us assume that there are 13 vacancies. Vacancies can arise because of any reason. Say for example, after the Lok Sabha election is over, let us assume 543 members are elected to the Lok Sabha. And after they are elected, still there can arise some vacancy to some of the seats because of multiple reasons. The reasons could be because of the death of the members. The reasons could be because the members get disqualified. The reasons could be any of the other things as well. So, by any reason that the vacancy arises to any of the seats, then to calculate the effective membership, you will have to minus the vacancies at that point of time whenever the proposal is introduced. Say example, if there are 543 members, which is the total membership of Lok Sabha, and when a proposal is introduced in that particular house, you need to see at that point of time what is the vacancy. And if suppose for an example, if the vacancy is 13, so the effective membership of Lok Sabha would be 543 minus 13. That would be the effective membership would be 530. And to calculate the effective majority, we need to know what is called as a effective membership. So, the effective majority would be the majority of the effective membership of the house. So, what would be the majority of 530 here, which is the effective membership? That would be 266, because 265 would amount to what is called as 530, that it is more than 50%, that would be 266. So, to pass a particular proposal with effective majority, in this particular case, 266 members in the Lok Sabha has to support that. Minimum 266 members. It can be more than that. Whenever I talk of majority, we are only talking about the minimum number that is required. It can definitely be more than that, but it shall not be less than this. So, here what you will have to understand to calculate the effective majority. To calculate the effective majority, first you need to have what is called as a effective membership. And effective membership is what? Total membership minus vacancies. And that gives you effective membership, and the majority of that would be what is called as the effective majority. So, let me just compare all the three things once again very quickly. To calculate the simple majority, what is the information you need to have? That the number of members present and voting on a given day, and a majority of that would be simple majority. To calculate absolute majority, the only information that you need is irrespective of vacancies, irrespective of present and voting, that is not your concern. The only thing that you need is what is the total membership of the house, and the majority of that would be what is called as absolute majority. And to calculate effective majority, what is the information that you need to have? You need to have what is called as a effective membership. And how do you calculate that effective membership? You need to have the information of the total membership of the house and also the vacancies at a given point in time. So, subtracting the vacancies with the total membership will give you what is called as effective membership, and the majority of that would be what is called as the effective majority. But before I proceed further, you should very carefully understand one thing, that you should not confuse absence with what is called as vacancy. Absence is different, vacancy is different. Absence means there is somebody occupying that particular seat, but on a given day he is absent. So, absence should not be confused with what is called as vacancy, whereas on the other hand, vacancy means the seat itself is vacant. So, if there are any absence on a given day, that should not be subtracted. What should be subtracted to calculate the effective membership is only the real vacancies at that point of time. And the majority of the effective membership is what is called as effective majority. And where is this effective majority is used under the constitution? The effective majority is used for certain purpose under the constitution. Say for example, removal of the speaker. For election of the speaker in the Lok Sabha, simple majority is used. But for the removal of the speaker in the Lok Sabha, the effective majority is used. Not only for the removal of the speaker in the Lok Sabha, the removal of the deputy speaker in the Lok Sabha. You might have an idea as to who speaker and deputy speaker. In case if you do not have an idea, nothing to worry. We will discuss about all these things in very detail as we will proceed with the parliament chapter. But for time being, try to understand that there is someone who is called as a presiding officer in the Lok Sabha. And the presiding officer is none other than the speaker. And if the speaker is to be removed, how he can be removed? He can be removed by an effective majority in the house. And if the deputy speaker is to be removed from his seat, he can be removed by what is called as effective majority. And similarly, there is a deputy chairman in the Rajya Sabha. The deputy chairman in the Rajya Sabha can also be removed by what is called as effective majority. So these are all some of the examples where the effective majority is used. I am quite sure that you are clear about the concept of what is called as simple majority, absolute majority, and what is effective majority. Now we are moving into a very, very important majority. That's basically what is called as special majority. Now, before I get into the special majority, one thing has to be very clear in your mind. And if this is clear in your mind, the rest of the understanding will be clear as well. Now, what do you understand by special majority? So, make this very clear that under the Constitution of India, there is only one simple majority, or in other words, one type of simple majority. That is the majority of present as well as voting. Under the Constitution, there is only one absolute majority. There is only one way of calculating what is called as an absolute majority. That is, it is a majority of the total membership of the House. And as well as there is only one effective majority. That is, it is the majority of the effective membership of the House. But however, under the Constitution, there are different types of special majority. There is not only one unique type of special majority, there are different types of special majority used for different purpose. And hence, although it is called as special majority, how you calculate that special majority may vary from circumstances to circumstance. So this is something that you will have to keep it as a general rule. So I am just repeating it. There is only one way of calculating a simple majority, one way of calculating an absolute majority, one way of calculating an effective majority. But there are different ways of calculating what is called as special majority. And under what circumstances or for what purpose, which special majority is to be used and how they are to be calculated, the Constitution specifies that. So all these informations are there in the Constitution, but you try to keep it in your mind. There are different types of special majority. And in fact, for your understanding, you should also keep this in your mind. Apart from the simple majority, absolute majority and effective majority, all other types of majorities are called as what is special majority. But however, there are different types of special majority for different purpose. Alright. So this is the thing that you have to keep in your mind. If this is clear, then the rest of the things will be very clear. Say for example, I said there are different types of special majority used for different purpose. So now let us try to understand some examples. So for example, the Constitution says to amend the Constitution. If at all any changes is to be made to the Constitution, it can be done only by a special majority under Article 368 of the Constitution. And we already seen that under the Constitution, who is having the power to amend the Constitution? If you know the answer, you can put it in the comment box. And of course, it is nothing but the Parliament. It is a Parliament who has the power to amend the Constitution under Article 368. But however, if the Parliament is to amend the Constitution, it has to pass the constitutional amendment bill with certain majority. And what is the majority that is required for this particular purpose? The Constitution says that the majority is what is called a special majority. So one instance where we use or we have to use a special majority is to make changes to the Constitution or to amend what is called as a Constitution as specified in Article 368. But this is not the only instance where we use a special majority. We use a special majority in different occasions as well. But however, under different occasions or for different purpose, the special majority could be different as it is prescribed in the Constitution. So first let us try to understand the special majority with regard to amending the constitution. Now, I am not explaining as to how the amendment has to be done or what is the process of making a constitutional amendment. That is not the objective in this particular class. Please do not misunderstand. The very objective of this particular class is only to make you understand as to how the amendment has to, or what is the majority or what is a special majority that is required to amend the constitution. That is the idea. So, what is a special majority that is required? Sorry. What is a special majority that is required to amend the constitution? The constitution says the special majority in this case is not less than 2/3 of the members present and voting plus absolute majority. That means to satisfy this condition of absolute majority to amend the constitution under Article 368, both these conditions has to be satisfied. So far we have seen only one condition. In case of simple majority, majority of the members present and voting. In case of absolute majority, majority of the total membership of the house. In case of effective majority, majority of the effective membership of the house, which is nothing but total membership minus vacancies. But to amend the constitution is saying that it has to be passed with special majority in both the houses, that is in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, whenever a constitutional amendment bill is introduced. And what is a special majority as per the constitution? It has to satisfy two conditions in both the houses separately. In the Lok Sabha also it should be passed with special majority, and then in the Rajya Sabha also it has to be passed with special majority. And what is considered to be special majority? It has to satisfy two conditions. So first, that proposal to amend the constitution introduced in the house shall be approved by not less than 2/3 of the members present and voting, and that 2/3 of the members present and voting who has approved it shall also satisfy the condition of absolute majority. Now, only with figures probably you will be able to have a better understanding. Say for example, let us assume a proposal is introduced in the Lok Sabha which is relating to amending the constitution. And when this proposal is introduced, let us assume that there are 450 members who are present and voting on this particular proposal. Although the total membership is what? The total membership is 543, but how many are actually present and voting? Only 450, because the first condition is not less than 2/3 of the members present and voting should approve this particular proposal. That means out of 450 members who are present and voting on this constitutional amendment bill, how many minimum have to support this constitutional amendment bill or this proposal? Minimum not less than 2/3 of the total members present and voting. So what would be not less than 2/3 of 430? That is 2 by 3 into 450. So that would be roughly around what? It would be roughly, it would be exactly 300. So minimum 300 members have to support this particular constitutional amendment bill. So that is minimum. It can be more than 300, but it is saying not less than 2/3 of the members present and voting. So let us assume that 300 members are minimum supporting it. If it is less than 300, then the condition is not satisfied. So then it may not amount to what is called a special majority. So minimum 300 members are supporting this particular proposal. Let us assume that. Okay. So the first condition is satisfied, but that would not amount to what is called a special majority. To satisfy special majority, the second condition should also be satisfied. Only when both the conditions are satisfied, then as per the constitution, the proposal is said to be passed with what is called as a special majority. So first condition, not less than 2/3 of the members present and voting. And in the example that you have taken is that minimum 300 members are supporting it. Okay. So first condition is satisfied. By 300 members supporting it, it is satisfying the condition of not less than 2/3 of the members present and voting. Now come to the second condition. The second condition is saying that the proposal, that is a constitutional amendment bill which is introduced in the Lok Sabha, shall also be passed with absolute majority. What is absolute majority? To calculate absolute majority, we need to have the total membership of the house, and that in case of Lok Sabha is 543. So out of that 543, if minimum 272 members are supporting it, then that would amount to what is called as absolute majority. So already 300 people are supporting it, which is not less than 2/3 of the members present and voting. So you'll have to see whether that 300 is equal or more to 272. And that 300, if it is equal or more to 272, then the condition of absolute majority is also satisfied. Then we can say that the bill is passed, or the constitutional amendment proposal is passed with what is called as special majority in the Lok Sabha. Only when these two conditions are satisfied, you can say that the special majority is satisfied. And similarly, after it is passed in the Lok Sabha, it will be sent to the Rajya Sabha also. And when it goes to the Rajya Sabha, there also separately it has to be passed with special majority, and where it has to satisfy both these conditions again in the Rajya Sabha. And then it can be sent to the president for his assent, and then subsequently the president give the assent. So we are not concerned about the process, we are only concerned about what is called as the majority. The remaining things I will discuss it later. So this is basically what is called as special majority with regard to amending the constitution. For example, I will give another example. Look into this particular case. Say for example, let us assume on a given day in the Lok Sabha, only 300 members are present and voting. The total membership is what? The total membership is 543. But how many members are present and voting? Only 300 members are present and voting. Let us assume that out of these 300 members, 200 members are supporting it. This proposal to amend the constitution, how many are supporting? 200 are supporting. So is it satisfying the first condition in this case also? That not less than 2/3 of the members present and voting has to support the proposal. So if minimum 200 members support it, it is satisfying the first condition because it is not less than 2/3 of the members present and voting. But however, this 200 number which we saw in the first condition, is it satisfying the second condition? That is what is called as absolute majority. Because to satisfy the condition of absolute majority, the constitution says that it shall be supported by minimum 272 members, because to calculate the absolute majority, we need the total membership of the house, and it shall be more than the total half of the total membership of the house. So while in the second example that I have taken, although the first condition is satisfied, the second condition is not satisfied, and hence the proposal is not passed by what is called as a special majority. So this is what is a very crucial thing. To call that to be a special majority, it has to be satisfied by both the houses of the parliament by special majority, and in both the houses it has to satisfy both the conditions. Only when both conditions are satisfied, then only it is deemed to be passed with what is called as special majority with regard to what is called as a constitutional amendment bill. Is that clear to all of you? So this is the basic understanding you should have as to what is a special majority in case of an amendment to the constitution. Okay, just a little bit of more information which we will discuss subsequently also when I take up the constitutional amendment bill and all those things. Okay, so whatever the majority that I have said is only if the amendment bill is trying to amend the federal, the non-federal provisions of the constitution. That it has to be passed with special majority in the first house, then it has to be passed with special majority in the second house, and then it goes to the president for his assent, and the special majority would be this particular condition. But any constitutional amendment bill can be classified into two types. One is amendment to the non-federal provisions, and other is an amendment to the federal provisions of the constitution. For your easier understanding, what does it mean by amendment to the federal provisions, amendment to the non-federal provisions? An amendment to the non-federal provision means, suppose if any changes are made in the constitution by introducing a constitutional amendment bill, but even if those changes are made in the constitution, those changes which are made in the constitution is not going to affect the power balance between the center and the state. Still the equilibrium is maintained. Whatever is already there in the constitution, the same equilibrium is maintained. But on the contrary, suppose let us assume a constitutional amendment bill is brought in, wherein after this constitutional amendment is done, it is varying the power balance between the center and the state. It may give more power to the center and less power to the states, or it may give more power to the states and less power to the center, whatever be the case. If the equilibrium is disturbed because of the constitutional amendment, then that would amount to what is called as amending the federal provisions of the constitution. So try to understand in this way. For example, suppose let us assume tomorrow there is an amendment to the fundamental rights. Say for example, the right to property was taken away as a fundamental right by the constitutional amendment, 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. Now this 44th Constitutional Amendment Act has taken the right to property. So this constitutional amendment, is it an amendment to the federal provision or non-federal provision? By taking away the right to property, it is not disturbing the power balance between the center and the state. So it still remains the same. It is only that you have taken away the fundamental right. So this is an amendment to the constitution, but this is an amendment to the non-federal provisions. Suppose on the contrary, instead of this, let us assume a constitutional amendment is brought in where it is trying to amend the schedule 7 of the constitution. For the students who may have an idea as to what is schedule 7, it is a schedule 7 of the constitution which provides various subject matters. The subject matters on which the parliament can make laws, the subject matter on which the state legislature can make laws, the subject matter on which both the parliament as well as the state legislature can make laws, which is also called as the union list, the list 1 on which the parliament can make laws, the state list or the list 2 on which the state legislature can make laws, the list 3, that is the concurrent list, on which both the parliament and the state legislature can make laws. And suppose if an amendment is introduced to the constitution, or an amendment bill is introduced where it is trying to transfer some of the items in the state list to the concurrent list, or it is trying to transfer some of the item from the state list to the union list, or it is trying to transfer some of the items from the union list to the state list. Now, if at all this amendment is done, then it is going to disturb the power balance between the center and the state. Either it may give more power to the center or less, more power to the state or less. It does not matter, but it is disturbing the existing equilibrium. In this case, such an amendment would be considered to be amendment to the federal provisions of the constitution. Now, why I am discussing all these things is because the special majority that we have talked about is little different in case of amendment to the non-federal provisions and the amendment to the federal provisions. So, what is the special majority in case of a non-federal provision? That is, if the constitutional amendment bill is trying to amend a non-federal provision in the constitution, it has to basically satisfy two conditions: that it shall not be less than 2/3 of the members present and voting, and that should also satisfy what is called as absolute majority. Then once it is passed by this majority in both the houses, then it will go to the president for his assent. This is in case of non-federal provision. But in case if the amendment bill is trying to amend the federal provisions of the constitution, here also it is the same. So, what is the special majority? Here also it is the same, but there is one more addition. What is that addition? That first of all, it has to be passed with special majority in both the houses of the parliament. That means in both the houses of the parliament, both the conditions has to be satisfied. That is not less than 2/3 of the members present and voting plus the absolute majority of the house. Now, once it is passed with special majority in both the houses of the parliament, then the bill does not directly go to the president, but rather it is sent to the various state legislatures in India. As of now, today we have got 28 states. So, this particular proposal will be sent to all the 28 state legislatures in India, and all these 28 state legislatures has to give the approval, but it is not necessary all the 28 state legislatures has to give the approval. The constitution says that this proposal shall also be approved by not less than half of the state legislatures in India. That means out of 28 state legislatures in India, how many state legislatures have to approve this? Not less than half, which means at least 14 state legislatures. So, please take note of the word not less than half. It is not saying not more than half. More than half would be 20 out of 28, more than half would be 15 states. But the constitution is saying only not less than half of the state legislatures, which means out of 28 states, minimum 14 state legislatures have to approve this particular proposal. And only when 14 state legislature also approve this particular proposal, then only this proposal can be sent to the president for his assent. So, combining all these things would be what is called as the process when it is trying to amend what is called as the federal provisions. So, while the special majority in case of the non-federal provision is only what is in the parliament, but in case of the federal provision, it shall also be ratified by the states, and not less than half of the states have to ratify. Okay, when the bill is introduced in the state legislature, what is the majority with which the state legislatures have to ratify this? They have to ratify this particular proposal with what is called as simple majority. Each and every state legislature has to ratify this with simple majority. But overall, how many state legislatures out of 28 should ratify this? Minimum 14 state legislatures, or not less than half of the state legislature presently ratify this. Then it will go for what is called as a president assent. So, this is basically what is called as the special majority with regard to amending the constitution under Article 368. But I have categorically said that the constitution provides for different types of special majority. Not that there is only one type of special majority. There is one type of special majority probably to amend the constitution. But there are different other purpose which also requires what is called as special majority, and in different cases the special majority is little different. So let us take the example of the special majority for the impeachment of the president. What does it mean by impeachment of the president? Under the Constitution of India, the president can be removed from his office. Even the president of India can be removed from the office. And who is authority to remove the president of India from his office? It is the parliament. And for which a proposal has to be introduced in the parliament and to remove the president of India, and this proposal has to be passed with special majority in both the houses of the parliament separately. And what is a special majority here in this particular case? It is not same as that of what is a constitutional amendment. Here the special majority, what the constitution is saying, is not less than 2/3 of the total membership of the house. That is what it is saying. Try to understand. It is not less than 2/3 of the total membership of the house, with which it has to be passed in both the houses, that is Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. That means, to put it very simply, here the special majority that is required is 2/3 into 543 in case of Lok Sabha, and 2/3 into 245 in case of Rajya Sabha. So only one condition, but not less than 2/3 of the total membership of the house. So that's a special majority with regard to what is called as the impeachment of the president. Similarly, under the Constitution of India, the judges of the Supreme Court and the judges of the High Court can also be removed. And for that also, it has to be passed with certain special majority. A motion has to be passed in both the houses with special majority. And what is a special majority that is required for the removal of the judges of the Supreme Court and High Court? And for that, a motion has to be introduced in both the houses of, or either houses of the parliament. It should be introduced, passed in both the houses, again with the special majority. And the special majority that is required for the removal of both judges of the Supreme Court or the High Court, and with which special majority they have to be passed in both the houses, it is same as that of amending the constitution. That is amending the constitution in case of the non-federal provisions. That means two conditions has to be satisfied. That is, not less than 2/3 of the members present and voting, and it also satisfy the condition of what is called as absolute majority. Now, apart from this also, there are certain other special majorities in the constitution, but we will discuss all those things as we will proceed. But for time being, what is the understanding you should have? This is the exact understanding you should have, that under the Constitution of India, there is only one type of simple majority, one type of effective majority, one type of absolute majority. But there are different types of special majorities, and different types of special majority for different purpose. And what are these special majorities and how it is to be calculated for different purpose, everything is mentioned in the Constitution. And apart from that, one more thing is, apart from simple majority, absolute majority or effective majority, all other type of majorities are called as what is special majorities. But however, there are different types of special majority for different purpose. So this is the basic understanding you should have. So I'm just taking a couple of minutes just to revise whatever we have seen very quickly. What is simple majority? How it is to be calculated? It is the majority of the members present as well as voting. So the simple information that we need is how many are present as well as voting, and the majority of that is simple majority. And how do we calculate absolute majority? The only information we need to calculate the absolute majority is what is the total membership of the house, and the majority of that would be what is called as absolute majority. What is effective majority? To calculate effective majority, all that we need to know is what is the effective membership of the house. And what is the effective membership? How do you calculate? Total membership minus vacancies. But you will have to keep in your mind that vacancies are not equivalent to what is called as absence. Absence is temporary, vacancy is permanent. So vacancy has to be filled. So to calculate the effective membership, we should always take only the vacancies. Under one circumstances, the effective membership, or sorry, under one circumstance or under one condition, the absolute majority and the effective majority would be the same. If any of the students know the answer, you can put under what condition the effective majority and the absolute majority would be the same. So you can put that in the comment box. And then the next thing is what is called as special majority. So we have seen that apart from these three types of majorities, all the other majorities are what is called as special majority, but different types of special majority used for different purpose. First is to amend the constitution. And to amend the constitution, if it is amending the non-federal provisions, two conditions. That is, not less than 2/3 of the members present and voting plus absolute majority. If it is amending the federal provisions, then in addition to these two conditions, it shall also be ratified by not less than half of the state legislatures in India. And the state legislatures themselves, each and every individual state legislature themselves have to ratify it with what is called as a simple majority. And if it is a special majority that is required to impeach the president, then that special majority is not less than 2/3 of the total membership of the House. And if it is a special majority that is required to remove the judges of the Supreme Court and High Court, it is same as that of the special majority that is required to amend the constitution in case of the non-federal provisions. I'm sure that it will be very clear to all of you. So once you watch this particular lecture, I'm quite sure that it will help you in understanding the different majorities. But we'll understand more information as we'll proceed with the further lectures. But this basic information will help you to observe most of the things that you are going to discuss in the further classes. With that, please come to the practice question. So look into this particular practice question. In which of the following cases special majority is required under the Constitution of India? Removal of the judges of High Court, impeachment of the president, removal of the Speaker of Lok Sabha. So if you observed my lecture carefully, you will be in a position to understand very easily. It may be different types of special majority, that does not matter. The question is only asking under what circumstances it requires a special majority. So what would be the answer? 1 only, 1 and 2 only, 1 and 3 only, all of the above. And you can put the answers in the comment box. So with that, we'll wind up the lecture for today. And in the next lecture, we'll continue with the further topics which are relevant to the Indian polity, and we'll take it gradually, slowly, and to make your concepts very clear. That is the fundamental objective of this particular program. If you have any of your family members or friends who are preparing for UPSC examination or any of the other competitive examination, you can refer them this particular channel. And I'm quite sure that it is going to be immensely beneficial for the students who are watching these lectures. Thank you very much. Keep watching. All the very best.